Hello everyone. The aim of every living organism, including plants, is to create offspring for the next generation. One of the ways that plants can produce offspring is called reproduction. It happens by making seed. So let's have a look on reproduction in typical endospermic plant. We eat variety of fruits. Do you know that how fruits are developed from flower and which part of the flower turns into edible fruit part? So the process in which fruit is developed followed by pollination and fertilization is known as reproduction. Yes, we are talking about reproduction in flowering plants. The first step of reproduction is when mature pollen grain lands on stigma. We know that pollen grains are developed on anther. So the movement of pollen grain from anther to the stigma is known as pollination. It is the first step of reproduction. As soon as pollen grain reaches to the stigma, it starts germinating its pollen tube carrying two male gametes. Pollen tube and the male gametes are produced by two types of cells known as generative cells and vegetative cell. Vegetative cell give rise pollen tube and generative cell give rise male gametes. There are certain events takes place by the time of pollen grain reaches to the stigmatic surface till the entry of male gametes towards the ovule. So the sequence of events which is carried out from the time of pollen deposition on the stigma till the entry of pollen tube inside of ovule is called pollen pistil interaction. If the pollen is compatible, pistil accepts it, while incompatible pollens are rejected. The accepted pollen grain releases its content over the stigma surface. Within 2 to 3 minutes, the pollen grain starts germinating and pollen tube grows through the style of the pistil towards the ovary. Let's understand the structure of ovule which is present inside the ovary. Here is the chalazal end and at the bottom here is a micropylar end. There are three cells present near the chalazal end which is antipodal cells. In middle there are two cells which is known as polar or secondary nuclei. At the micropylar end there are three cells in which two are synergid cells and one present in the middle is known as egg cell. When the pollen grain enters through the chalaza or chalazal end, this process is known as chalazogamy. When the pollen tube enters through the integuments, this process is known as mesogamy. When the pollen tube enters through the micropylar end, this process is known as porogamy. Pollen tube releases two male gametes towards the embryo sac, in which one male gamete fuses with the secondary nuclei and the another male gamete fuses with the egg cell. The one which fuses with the secondary nuclei makes endosperm and the another male gamete which fuses with the egg cell makes zygote. Zygote is a product of fertilization. Once the fertilization takes place, the fertilized ovule developed into seeds and ovary develops into fruit. Here is a clear depiction of endospermic reproduction. The pollen grain reaches to the stigma carrying two male gametes that will send it to the ovules, in which one male gamete fuses with the egg cell and forms zygote and another male gamete fuses with the secondary nuclei and makes endosperm. The function of endosperm is to provide nourishment to the developing zygote or embryo. Every fertilized ovule can develop into seed. Later on, ovary develops into fruit. Zygote is a product of fertilization, whereas endosperm is a product of double fertilization. Zygote will develop into embryo and embryo will develop into seed. The function of endosperm is to provide nourishment to the developing embryo. When we see here is a one male gamete, when it binds with the egg cell, it makes zygote, right? So the ploidy of zygote is 2n because male gamete is a haploid structure and egg cell is a haploid structure, hence make a diploid zygote structure. The one male gamete fuses with a secondary nuclei. Secondary nuclei is a diploid or 2n structure. So when they are fuses with each other, they form endosperm, which is a triploid structure. What is double fertilization? When one male gamete fuses with a female gamete and the other fuses with a secondary nucleus, right? So there are two male gametes fusing simultaneously with different type of cells. As two male gametes take part and fertilization takes place twice, This process is called double fertilization. So these are the two reproduction products, which is zygote and endosperm. Zygote further turns into embryo and embryo turns into seed. The function of endosperm is to provide nourishment to the developing embryo. So this is all about reproduction in flowering plants. I hope you understood this complete concept. For more educational videos, please like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel Biology Fundamentals. You can also follow me on Instagram for more educational content. Link is available in the description box. Till then, keep learning and stay connected. Bye bye.